Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're taking a look into the future of tourism in Thailand. Specifically, who's likely to be visiting in 2030?
That's right. We're digging into a research paper called Analyzing Top Nationalities Visiting Thailand in 2030.
And this isn't just guesswork, is it? It's based on quite a bit of data.
Oh, yeah, definitely. It uses a mix of methods looking back at tourist data from 2002 right up to 2015, plus forecasts, expert opinions, surveys, the whole 9 yards.
So our mission today is really to understand these projections, who's coming, and maybe more importantly, why does it matter for Thailand?
Exactly. Because knowing who is visiting is crucial. It's not just about numbers, it's about planning smart.
Smart planning.
Yeah.
How so? What does knowing the nationality help with?
Well, think about it. Different nationalities often have, different interests, travel styles, even spending habits. Understanding that helps Thailand tailor its offerings.
Right. So better marketing, maybe.
Better marketing, yes, but also resource allocation, infrastructure development, even policy planning. It helps ensure tourism grows sustainably without overwhelming the place or losing its cultural identity.
Sustainable growth. That's key. So it's about understanding the differences, say, between a Japanese tourist and an Indian tourist.
Precisely. Their preferences for activities, accommodation, food, cultural interaction, it can all vary. Knowing this helps maximize the benefits of tourism while managing potential downsides like over-tourism in certain spots.
Makes total sense. It's like basic market research, but for a whole country's tourism sector. So, okay, give us the headline finding. Who does the research expect at the top in 2030?
The projections point pretty clearly to Japan, China, and India remaining the top 3 source markets for arrivals in 2030.
Japan, China, India. Okay, interesting. So they expect that strong connection these countries already have with Thailand to continue.
Yeah, the paper highlights a strong attachment, as they put it.
All right, let's unpack that. What's the foundation for this? What has tourism in Thailand looked like historically and, well, now?
Tourism is huge for Thailand's economy. I mean, back in 2019, it was something like 21% of GDP. That's massive.
Wow, over a fifth of the economy.
Yeah. And the research expects international tourism money to keep growing towards 2030. And even before looking ahead, those 3 countries, Japan, China, India, were consistently big players. So there's a history there.
And Thailand just offers so much, doesn't it? It's incredibly diverse.
Absolutely. You've got ancient temples, incredible beaches, bustling markets, the food, obviously the food, plus things like ecotourism are growing too.
And the people. You always hear about Thai hospitality.
That's a huge factor. That welcoming culture, the willingness to share traditions, it really makes a difference to the visitor experience.
So it's the attractions, the culture. What else contributes to its success? Government support.
Yes, definitely. The Thai government has been pretty active. They've pushed initiatives for sustainable tourism, trying to protect the cultural and natural sites. That's important for the long game.
And getting around. Infrastructure must play a role.
For sure. They've invested in airports, railways, roads, making it easier to access different parts of the country. Plus, relatively speaking, it's often quite affordable. Favorable exchange rates, lower prices compared to some places. That helps attract budget travelers, too.
Right. And that amazing Thailand campaign, that's been running for ages, hasn't it?
It has. It's been a key part of promoting the country globally. But the research is also realistic. It acknowledges that external stuff matters, too.
Like what?
Economic downturns elsewhere, social unrest, global economic health, environmental issues, all these things can sway tourist numbers, things Thailand can't directly control.
True. And technology. How does that fit in?
Oh, massively. Technology allows for really targeted promotions now. You can reach specific groups with messages about experiences they're likely interested in. And you see sustainability and ecotourism popping up more in that marketing, too.
Okay, so that sets the scene. A strong history, diverse appeal, government support, but also external factors. Now, how did the researchers actually project forward to 2030? What was the methodology?
They use what's called a mixed methods approach, so blending numbers with more qualitative insights.
Numbers like?
Like detailed analysis of past tourist arrivals. They looked at monthly data by nationality from 2002 to 2015, a big chunk of historical data.
13 years of data. That gives you a pretty solid baseline, I imagine.
It does. It helps spot the established trends, but they didn't stop there. They cross-checked this data, triangulated it with information from loads of other places.
Like government agencies,
Sure.
tourism boards.
Exactly, and international organizations, big companies in the industry, research firms, trying to get a really rounded picture from the quantitative side.
So crunching the historical numbers, but validating them against other sources. What about the qualitative side? The non-number stuff.
That involved getting insights directly from people. They surveyed international visitors about their plans and preferences, and crucially, they talked to experts.
Experts from where?
All sorts of sectors. Tax authorities, international tourism bodies, industry leaders, even experienced international travelers themselves. They ran, I think it was 23 forums and did 24 in-depth interviews.
Wow, okay. That's quite comprehensive. So talking to people on the ground, essentially.
Precisely. Trying to understand the nuances, the cultural factors, economic shifts, even geopolitical stuff that might influence who decides to visit Thailand and why. It goes beyond just extrapolating past numbers.
Right, adds that layer of real-world context.
Yeah.
So based on all of the data, the interviews, the surveys, what key trends in international travel did they identify that feed into these 2030 predictions?
A big one is the shift towards experiential travel. People want more than just sightseeing.
What does that mean exactly? Like doing stuff rather than just seeing stuff?
Yeah, kind of. Engaging with local culture, exploring nature, maybe joining festivals, learning crafts. There's also more interest in community-based tourism, interacting genuinely with locals.
So deeper, more authentic experiences?
Exactly. And linked to that is this growing sense of responsibility. Sustainable tourism, conservation, these are becoming bigger priorities for travelers. Ecotourism is definitely on the rise.
That makes sense. You hear that a lot more now.
Yeah.
And technology's role.
Still huge, obviously. Online booking, travel apps, social media inspiration. It just makes everything easier and more personalized. Convenience and mobility are key.
So tech facilitates these new trends. But are the old favorites still popular? Like beaches and resorts?
Oh, absolutely. Resorts, entertainment, health and wellness tourism, visiting religious sites, those remain very popular draws. It's more that the mix is evolving, and digital marketing is essential to reach all these different groups.
And where are people coming from? Any shifts there?
Well, the traditional long-haul markets like Europe and the US are still important, of course, but the real growth engine is Asia, driven by that expanding middle class. Places like China, India, other Southeast Asian nations.
Okay. And you mentioned VFR travel.
Yeah, visiting friends and relatives, that's a noticeable driver for arrivals from Europe, the Middle East, and the US too. It's not always just pure vacation travel.
Got it. So a really dynamic picture, lots of different motivations and origins. Did the research look at the even bigger picture, like global tourism trends historically?
It did, yeah, to provide context. International tourism globally has just exploded. Think about it. Around 200 million international arrivals in 1970 and over 1.2 billion by 2015. Just incredible growth.
Whoa, that's a massive change.
Huge. And where people go has shifted too. Europe used to dominate, but Asia Pacific has seen enormous growth.
Which makes sense with economic development in the region.
Exactly. And specific types of destinations became more popular warm climates like Mexico, Turkey, and of course, Thailand.
And the source countries. Who's doing all this traveling?
That's shifted too. The U.S. was dominant for much of the 20th century, but by 2017, China had become the world's largest source of outbound tourists in terms of spending. It shows how dynamic this whole industry is.
Okay, so that's the global backdrop. Now, focusing back on Thailand, what specific shifts in traveler behavior did the research highlight as being really important for 2030?
The main theme, really, is this move from, let's say, accumulation, ticking boxes, seeing sights, towards seeking experiences.
Right, that experiential travel idea again.
Yeah. People want authenticity. They care more about sustainable and responsible travel. They might seek out more off-the-beaten-track places. And post-COVID, there's definitely a heightened awareness of hygiene and security. That's a factor now.
For sure. Health and safety are way higher on the agenda for everyone.
Absolutely. So for destinations like Thailand, this means thinking about experiential marketing. How do you offer unique, meaningful engagement? The why of travel is changing. Less about social status or just escaping, more about adventure, relaxation, or genuine cultural immersion.
So personalization becomes really important. Understanding individual needs.
Hugely important. Travelers are more discerning. They want experiences tailored to them that resonate with their values and expectations.
Okay, so bringing all these trends and analyses together, remind us again, who are the top nationalities projected for Thailand in 2030?
Japan and China are expected to hold on to those top spots in terms of numbers.
Okay. Any nuances there?
One interesting point was about how trips are financed. Financial institutions seem to play a bigger role in travel spending for Japanese and Chinese tourists, maybe through packages or specific travel loans, with Japan having a higher ratio of that.
Interesting distinction. And the U.S.
The U.S. shows a pretty broad spread of travelers across different spending levels, not concentrated in one bracket.
And the overall outlook for Thai tourism by 2030. Pretty positive.
Very positive, based on this research. They anticipate quite significant, almost exponential growth leading up to 2030.
But with a catch, presumably.
Well, the key message is that everyone involved, businesses, government, local communities, needs to adapt to these evolving trends to really make the most of that potential growth. It won't just happen smoothly without effort.
Right. Adaptation is key. Now, you mentioned the ranking isn't just about sheer numbers. They looked at economic impact, too.
Yes, and that's a crucial distinction. The ranking considers both the projected volume of visits in 2030 and the estimated total economic impact of those visitors.
So, not just how many people come, but how much they spend and contribute overall.
Exactly. It gives a more rounded view than just counting heads at the airport.
Oh.
Some groups might spend more per person or stay longer.
Makes sense. So when you look through that economic lens, who are the key players? Does it change the picture much?
China remains a leader, even with the economic focus. Very significant contributor.
Still number one, or close to it.
Yeah, definitely a destination leader.
Yeah.
But other countries show up strongly, too. Neighboring ASEAN countries, Laos, Myanmar, Vietnam are important, probably due to proximity and regional ties.
Easy cross-border travel, maybe?
Likely. And Russia also remains a strong player in terms of economic contribution. But the research stresses you always have to consider those external factors, too.
Right, like fuel prices affecting flight costs, exchange rates making things cheaper or pricier, visa rules.
All of that can influence spending patterns and overall economic impact. It's not static.
Okay. The research also drilled down into demographics, didn't it? Especially elderly tourists. What did they find there?
Yeah, this was quite interesting. Unsurprisingly, perhaps, higher income tourists tend to spend more, often on luxury or enriching experiences, quality over just cost.
And these tourists often have incomes much higher than their home country's average.
Significantly higher, yeah. The mean income per capita for tourists from many key source countries was found to be like 2 to 4 times higher than the average GDP per capita back home. It really highlights the spending power they bring.
It certainly does. Okay, and specifically the older travelers, the over 65s.
Well, some source countries have very high proportions of older people. Italy and the UK were highest in the study, then Japan and Germany, all over 25% aged 65 plus slate.
So a big potential market. What are their travel preferences like?
They tend to prefer more relaxing trips, sightseeing. Maybe Buddhist pilgrimages are appealing. They often take longer trips, too, over 14 days.
Longer stays mean more spending, potentially. Where do they like to stay?
Mostly hotels and resorts. Cost isn't usually their primary worry. It's more about the experience, comfort, maybe accessibility.
So they're less interested in, say, bungalows or guest houses.
Apparently so, based on the findings. Maybe because longer trips are often booked as packages that favor hotels and resorts, or perhaps just a preference for amenities and convenience.
This sounds like a major opportunity for Thailand, then, catering to this group.
Absolutely. Given their potential spending power and preference for longer stays, Thailand could really position itself as a top destination for elderly tourists. Tailored packages, accessible facilities, culturally rich but relaxed itineraries. It could be a big revenue driver.
Okay, so we understand who's coming, their potential characteristics, and economic clout. What are the big implications of all this for Thailand? And what does the research suggest they do about it?
Well, the main implication is that these shifts, who's coming, what they want, will ripple through everything. Economic earnings, sure, but also cultural exchange, the kinds of tourist products and services needed.
So businesses need to pay attention.
Definitely. They need to be flexible, ready to cater to diverse tastes, offer more personalized experiences. And it's also about being aware of how tourist activities might change so you can minimize negative impacts, maybe spread the benefits more widely into local communities.
Right, managing the downsides while maximizing the upsides.
Yeah.
What specific recommendations came out of the paper?
A big one is the role of the private sector in pushing sustainable practices. It can't just be talk. Businesses need to act.
And policymakers.
They need to create the right environment, laws and regulations that encourage sustainable tourism, that balance economic goals with protecting the environment and local culture.
Sounds like everyone needs to work together.
Exactly. Collaboration is key between government, local authorities, businesses, communities. That's essential for long-term sustainable success.
Okay, let's circle back to the economic impact for a moment. Did the research give more detail on spending habits?
It did touch on that. Foreign tourist spending is obviously vital for GDP and jobs, but what they spend on varies.
Any examples?
Yeah, it mentioned South Asian tourists tending to spend a fair bit on entertainment, leisure like spas and massages, and interestingly, street food. But overall, spending links closely to nationality and, well, how much money they have.
And growth in spending from certain groups obviously helps specific sectors in Thailand.
Right. Hotels, restaurants, tour operators, retail, they all benefit. But there's a flip side.
Which is?
While tourism can spread income, rapid commercial development can sometimes put pressure on traditional livelihoods, like agriculture, if land use changes. It's a balancing act.
A familiar tension in tourism development. Did the research mention specific popular spots?
Yeah, Pattaya and Bangkok came up as major hubs. Pattaya more for leisure, Bangkok attracting a mix, including business travelers, and Chinese tourists were noted as significant contributors to fixed spending, maybe accommodation, pre-booked tours.
And the overall visitor numbers are expected to grow significantly by 2030.
Substantially, yeah. Especially daily visitor numbers driven largely by those key markets, China, India, and also Myanmar. This boosts domestic consumption, creates multiplier effects.
But also puts pressure on infrastructure.
Exactly, which underlines the need for investment in things like transport, but also waste management, environmental protection. You need to manage the growth.
So assessing these economic impacts, both good and bad, is crucial for policy.
Absolutely, for balanced development, for conservation. And businesses need to understand regional differences too, cultural preferences. Travel behavior might vary within Thailand. Strategy needs to reflect that.
Which means things like transport systems, facilities, attractions might need upgrades based on who's coming and what they want.
Precisely. Tailoring the infrastructure and offerings to specific national identities and tourism needs.
Okay, that brings us neatly to policy considerations.
Yeah.
How can Thailand manage this increasing diversity and the ever-present risk of overtourism?
Well, the core issue is that different groups do different things, right? They have different incomes, stay for different lengths of time, visit different places.
So a one-size-fits-all policy won't work.
Not effectively, no. Infrastructure and services need to match this diversity, ideally spreading visitors out across the kingdom to avoid bottlenecks and hotspots.
Is the tourism authority already thinking along these lines?
Yes, their strategies do aim to promote different regions. This research can help refine that by understanding the specific preferences of these top future nationalities. So you can develop targeted initiatives, build infrastructure where it meets their specific needs.
And how does this fit with Thailand's bigger picture goals?
Policy needs to align with national objectives. Right now, that's largely about sustainable growth, supporting local communities, recovering pricing power post-pandemic, and boosting the economy. Improving the overall experience by offering diverse options is key to that.
Which likely means government needs to be quite proactive.
Yes, robust interventions based on good data about tourist numbers and behavior. And again, collaboration between agencies is vital. You need that end-to-end view of the tourist journey. And constant monitoring are the policies actually working.
It sounds like a continuous process of analysis and adjustment.
It has to be. The research suggests exploring policy options based on detailed breakdowns, numbers, origin, activity type, right up to 2030. But making it happen needs high-level support and wide-ranging cooperation.
And recognizing that different markets might need different approaches, like Asia versus Europe.
Definitely. Asian visitors, often using international links for both business and leisure, might have different growth potential or needs compared to traditional European markets. So you need tailored initiatives. It's all about balancing that growth ambition with tackling the real challenges of over-tourism.
Okay, so let's try to wrap this up. To summarize our deep dive today, the research projects, Japan, China, and India, will likely remain the top visiting nationalities for Thailand in 2030.
Right. And understanding their diverse profiles, what motivates them, how they spend, what they want to experience is absolutely crucial.
Crucial for sustainable development, for smart policy planning, and ultimately for Thailand's economic health.
And don't forget that significant opportunity with older travelers, the elderly tourist segment. Higher spending, longer stays.
Right, a key growth area potentially. But the big challenge remains that balancing act driving economic growth while protecting Thailand's unique environment and culture.
That's the core challenge, yes. Which leads to a final thought, perhaps, for you listening.
Go on.
Well, given these projections and the really diverse preferences we've talked about, how might Thailand need to innovate? What new tourism offerings, what infrastructure changes might be needed in, say, the next 5 years to really cater effectively to Japanese, Chinese, and Indian visitors while keeping things sustainable and enriching for everyone?
That's a good question, thinking about practical innovation.
And maybe think, too, what unexpected things could change the picture? Could there be unforeseen cultural shifts or major global events, things this research couldn't predict, that might reshape who visits Thailand and why? It's a fascinating future to ponder for such an amazing destination.